Fantastic Thursday. My goodness, Thursday afternoon. How's everyone doing? It's the Teddy Bear, and welcome to Night Traxx Radio. And today's on the spotlight, platinum recording artist, the legendary Lou, of course. Mr. Lou Marini Jr. is joining us today. And not only that, family, we have a special treat, new CD, double CD called Out of the Blue. Brother, thank you so much for joining us today. And first and foremost, how are you feeling?
I'm good. It's hot here in New York, but other than that, I'm cool.
That's all that matters. You know what? First of all, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a long time coming. And I got to ask you, man, this new double CD, wow. Kind of unprecedented at this time as far as the way the music industry has changed so dramatically. And I wanted to ask you at this stage of your career, what gives you more gratification? Still performing live, or actually having the ability just to simply go in the studio and working with your comrades, your friends, and working on the music and putting it together?
Oh, well, it's a combination, I think. I mean, I love playing, and I've been a player since I was 13. I started making money on my own. But being in the studio, it was during the pandemic that I wrote all this new material. And all prior to this, whenever I wrote big band charts, I was always thinking about performing them with college bands. And so I always sort of eased up on the gas a little bit as far as writing. And during the pandemic, I just figured, I got all these guys that I've been playing with for years, and a bunch of young guys that I just started listening to and getting to know. And I'm just going to write whatever I feel like. And man, I was on a burn. I'd finish one and sit down and start on the next one, and I felt totally free about it. And it's a very wide range of music, and some of the pieces are extended pieces. So, but they're true jazz, man. There's a lot of blowing. I give every saxophone player in the section has a beautiful solo on this album, and great trumpet solos and trombone solos and piano solos. So I gave the cats a chance to blow. It was a thrill to do it. And we did it the old way, which, the old way of being in the studio, no headphones, listening and playing live. It was more difficult than I thought it would be. And the reason is we're just out of practice. We haven't been in the studio like we used to be. So it took more time than I thought. But the end result, I'm super happy with.
Well, I want to touch on something that you just said that I found that's really important when we talk about the pandemic and how it affected so many people. And I sat back and I thought, you know what? Life is not a commodity. Each and every day is a blessing. And I wanted to ask you, during that time of the pandemic, you said you were on a roll as far as your writing. you were on a roll.
Yeah.
During that time, did you have an opportunity to, I guess, to take inventory and just kind of step back and really appreciate the amount of work that you have given us? Because you have given us some incredible music over there. And you have so many people, including myself, who love you and love your music, and more importantly, appreciate what you have done and what you have brought to us.
Well, thank you, brother. That makes me feel good. During the pandemic, man, we were in the heart of it here in New York City. That first month, the sirens never stopped, And when people started at 7:00 banging pots and pans and salute the healthcare workers who were fighting for us, every night I opened the window, and as loud as I could play my tenor saxophone, I played New York, New York, and I did it every night, man. And one day I was recording some stuff at home, and I was so absorbed that I didn't realize 7:00 had come and gone. And then my phone was ringing, and my downstairs neighbor called me up and said, "Lou, are you okay? You didn't play, And I said, "Oops, sorry." But yeah, luckily for myself, for my wife and I, she had a sabbatical year that she had applied for precisely the year of the pandemic. So we were home together. And yeah, there was a lot of time to think and take stock and take care of each other and count our blessings. But man, I've been pretty good at counting my blessings. I've been so lucky to have played for so long with so many great, great players, so many great players. And, we just lost one, my friend David Sanborn. We were roommates at the Stan Kenton Jazz Clinics when we were 15 years old.
Wow.
I met Randy Brecker at the camps. So many guys, that have continued through the years to play. So I'm very aware that I'm lucky.
You just mentioned David Sanborn, and I mean, we have lost some incredible musicians over the last several years. I remember when Al Jarreau passed away. That hit me. That really hit me hard because I'm a huge Al Jarreau fan. And then when we just lost David, and it's like, you start taking inventory and you give a greater appreciation for life. You give a greater appreciation for music, as I've always said. Music has such a divinity to bring unity to everyone. And you've had the ability to do that for so long. You're still looking exceptional. That horn is on the second. That horn is still on another level. And I wanted to ask you, what has you most proud about this new CD?
Well, it's very challenging music. It's not experimental in any way. I mean, it is in some ways. There's a tune called I was originally going to call it the Big Bang, but my young, brilliant piano player friend Stephen Feifke said, "Oh, the Big Shebang," and I said, "Oh, well, that's got to be it, the Big Shebang." But it's sort of it's a very abstract piece, but the rest of the music is some of it I think is very Ellingtonian, and it just reflects my whole sort of musical taste: world music, classical music, which I listen to tons of, and of course jazz. And as you get older, I think one thing I keep thinking that the more I listen to Duke Ellington, the more I think he's the greatest genius of the 20th century. Unbelievable music in that band to have those guys. There's one piece that on the CD that's called what did I call it? Fat Man, and it was dedicated to my dearest friend who passed away a few years ago prior to the pandemic, named Joe Randazzo. He was a great bass trombone player, played with Ray Charles and Stan Kenton, and here in New York was one of the stalwarts on the New York scene, Jerry Mulligan Big Band and National Jazz Orchestra, among his other credits. But he was a great cook. He was a wonderful character, and he knew every guy in the band. The band is sort of a mixture between my colleagues that I've been playing with since I moved to New York, and a bunch of young guys that I didn't know they're playing. But Joe turned me on to all of them because he was playing in a lot of rehearsal bands. So I tried to make, for instance, after the statement of the melody, there's a band soli that's basically a solo that the piano plays. But every phrase of the solo, the piano is accompanied by a different guy in the band. So phrase one is the tenor sax, first tenor. Phrase two is second trumpet. Phrase three is trombone four. So I meant it so that every guy in the band got to blow a little kiss to Joe. So those kinds of things. There's a lot of there's a piece called Abao Aku, which was inspired by Jorge Borges' Book of Imaginary Beings. There's a piece called Klong that reminded me of gamelan music and the way it starts. So there's a lot of stuff, but I'm proud of it, man.
Well, I said, when I get you on the show, I wanted to ask you, do you think here in the States, in America in general, we've become somewhat jaded and become somewhat unappreciative for musicianship, where when you leave outside the United States and you go to the UK, Switzerland, Germany, especially in Japan, they have such a love affair and respect, and they revere music on a completely another level that I think at one time we did. Do you think there's that it has changed that dramatically?
Well, I do think that like I'm heading for Italy in a few weeks. I played 12 gigs in Italy in February, and I noticed that the audiences, they were definitely there to listen. They were not there to take selfies. Uh,
Right.
they were passionately involved in listening to the music. But I just finished the first leg of James Taylor. We started May 20th. We finished July 4th. And James's audiences, man, there's nobody, the people are listening. So Americans do listen. But one thing I think is lost, or maybe not lost, is too strong a word, but the appreciation for the mastery of an instrument and the understanding of the thousands and thousands of hours that go into that. I think there's a diminished appreciation of that. There's still devoted jazz fans and devoted music fans. There's no doubt about that. But I think there's been a coarsening of our understanding and appreciation for the quality of great playing.
When I bring someone to your attention, like Grover Washington Jr., or take it a step further, Bird, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of those two particular artists?
Well, it's not hot licks, you know. It's deeply understood and heard melodies. Bird's solos, transcriptions, they're cliches. Everybody has cliches, but
Right.
man, it's spontaneous and the way he connects phrases and bounces from one thought to the other so freely. And yeah, I think the thing is it's not just a repetition of stuff that you got under your fingers, because it's a curious thing. You practice hours and hours to get something under your fingers, and by the time you get there, you're bored with it. You don't want to hear it anymore. But then if things are right, it starts appearing in your playing. But there's one thing that is different from the era of Bird and all the grand masters that we revere, Train and Coleman Hawkins, and those guys played 6 nights a week, 7 nights a week, 2 sets a night, 3 sets a night. I remember Frank West telling me that when he was in DC, uh, he was playing a gig that went from like 8 to midnight. Then he went and played another gig that went from 1 to 3. Then he went to a club and sat in from 4 to 6. And then he went and had breakfast. That kind of playing, especially with a band, uh, when you're playing night after night, 2 and 3 sets a night, something changes. Uh, you can have all the chops in the world, but when you're playing like that with good players, man, it just opens up. All of a sudden things start happening, and there's a communication that is on a totally different level, and you play in a different way. And the few times that I've gotten to do that, where you're playing the same music night to night, even this little glimpse of it in Italy back in February, we played 11 gigs in 12 days. Uh, Playing the same music every night. We varied certain tunes, and there were tunes that we played where we just said, I would say, let's play a standard, or let's play Julio, or let's play, Footprints. But other than that, we were playing the same thing. And by the end of 12 concerts, man, you start seeing like, wow, what if I was able to do this for a month or 6 months or a year with the same band, like Miles did or like Train did? Then something different happens.
I've always noticed, we're both 21. We've been around the block a few times, a few times. It's something magical when you have that level of improvisation and the level of freedom to change up and do music in so many different variations where it does not become like monotonous to an extent. And I wanted to ask you at this time and this point in your life, what still excites you about performing live? Is it the idea of just being able to have that,
Well,
just to have that connection with the listening audience?
One thing about playing is really physical, man. And when I was a kid, I was a good ball player. I played everything, When I got to New York, I started playing four-wall handball, which is the greatest game in the world, without a doubt. It's just not that much fun to watch,
Right.
You're playing in a box, but man, it's so demanding. But I was thinking when you said, like how free it can be improvisation wise, the closest thing I can think of is like a great basketball team. The intuitive nature of it, the spontaneous, one guy does something, that sparks something else, and bang, something happens. That's as close as an analogy as I can think of to what happens when you're playing and everything really feels connected. But as far as for me, like to get a chance to do it again, every time I do, uh, I think about it. When the Blues Brothers band plays, our drummer Lee Finkelstein and I will be in like Latvia or some place that you've never been before, playing for 1,000 people or 10,000 people. It depends, And right before we start to play, we look at each other, and the look says, "Dig it, man! How lucky! How cool is this? We're getting to do it one more time. We get one more chance at it, uh, one more pop,
Right.
and that's the way I feel, man."
I've always prided myself as far as being able to keep my emotions, quote unquote, in check. And I know my son teases me a lot, said, "Dad, you're still stuck back in the '70s." And I said, "That's okay. I'm all right with that." I wanted to ask you, can you begin to even realize or understand with you and the rest of all those gifted musicians of the original Blues Brothers band, what kind of love that you actually brought to us? Those collectively were some of the greatest musicians on this planet. And to be led by John
Yeah. Well, it was.
and Dan, it was like a comic, man. It was something beautiful to behold, to see you guys collectively perform.
It was like a comet. That's the way it felt. It felt like we did a skit on Saturday Night Live. Then now we got a gig at the Universal Amphitheater. And then the reaction there, I always tell the story, but I remember like the third or fourth night, Jack Nicholson was sitting in the front row, and he was wearing his shades, and I caught his eye, and he had his shades on, and he looked at me and he went, "Wow."
Wow.
But I did that gig in Italy in February. I played 2 nights with a famous Italian blues band, guy named Fabio Trevis. He's a harmonica player. And one of the gigs, there was a 500-seat theater. And after the gig, I signed autographs and CDs for 45 minutes after the gig. Italian Blues Brothers fans who just love it. They love the music. They love us. Yeah, we had no idea of the profundity of the reaction to it. It took a while because man, the critics totally panned us in the beginning, But yeah, it was a great band, man. It was really a great band.
And when you get a chance to see the Colonel again, tell him, man, I just.
Actually, I just spoke to him because they're doing a documentary on him, and I'm gonna have a little say so in it. So they're arranging that. Yeah.
Because I know he has a new album. He has a new album coming out, and I can't wait to hear that. Now, the new album, of course, the double CD, Out of the Blue, is coming out in October. Is there any way that the listeners can actually pre-order the album?
I don't know that. I didn't think to ask the guys at La Reserve, Matt and Jacob Block. They're a couple of brothers. I didn't ask them whether they can pre-order. I don't know. The La Reserve is a streaming site and a really
Okay.
good one. But I'm also going to print up a bunch of CDs and sell them through my website, and I'll probably put them on, the all the music venues. So they take care of all the streaming, and the album design and stuff is for me to do separately.
Okay. Okay. Is there a remote possibility that anything is going to be released on vinyl?
Well, there is. I've been talking to people about that. It seems like there is a market for vinyl.
Yes.
But it takes a while to do it, and so I have to investigate that. I'd love to have it out on vinyl. I'll tell you, I still love listening to my vinyl records. I do it at home all the time.
Because I was somewhat lost, and it caught me off guard when all the record stores started closing here in the States. And I'm like, what is going on? And everything went to a digital format.
Yeah. Well, we're like old dogs, man. We like our old tricks. But well, that was one of the things, like I don't. And I moved to New York in '71. Until Tower Records closed, I don't think there was ever a week that I was in town that I didn't spend 2 or 3 hours looking through records in Tower Records. It was just something you did. You passed by on where was it, 50th or 49th Street and Broadway, and oh man, I got to go check out and see what's new. Oh, I got to go to the classical. Oh, check this out. Oh, world music. Oh, there's, you're in there for an hour and a half. Came out every time I went in there, I came out with CDs. Yeah, that was a profound change.
It was. I mean, for me, it was one of the greatest feelings in the world to actually go into a record store and pick up some vinyl, read the liner notes, the artwork.
The artwork, man.
Yeah, the artwork.
I remember those Miles when Miles started doing the electric band, those album covers. You walked in and was like, "Whoa, check this out!" Yeah.
Is there anyone? Because you've played with virtually everyone, is there anyone in particular that gives you a greater joy to play with live? Someone that just really stimulates you from a musical aspect?
Well, it's in James's band. Steve Gadd, of course, is a wonder to play with, and I've been so lucky to play with him, not only with James, but in a lot of other situations. Larry Golding's the keyboard player with James. He's a genius, man. He's like an old soul, He can play Fats Waller and he can play out there. He's just a thrill to play with. And so is Walt Fowler, the trumpet player that plays with James. Walt, I think, is an unsung jazz hero. He just plays beautiful. I got to go over to, it started off a quintet with Lou Soloff, my dear departed buddy. And Louis and I had a connect that was really deep. We would sometimes, in improvising, we would play whole phrases together out of the blue. We would do things like we're on a gig, we're playing a chart that we've played 150 times, and every time we get to the first bar of letter D, we play the note short, and then something happens, and one night suddenly we play this note long, and we would look at each other, give each other this sidelong glance, and go like, how did that happen? He was a thrill to play with, and so was my great friend and great guitar player Joe Beck, one of the all-time greats. He was a delight. And somebody else that I love playing in his band is John Tropez. Tropes has fought through some health problems in the past few years, but he's back to playing again. He had to have a shoulder replacement, and he fought through a lot of of dues, and I think we're going to start playing with his small band again, which is a thrill and a total delight to play with.
Well, what I would like to do is when this double CD is ready, like grandma's cookies, and it's just marinating, nice and warm, the teddy bear I would like to personally buy 20 copies of the CD so I can sit up and give them away as prizes on the show. Your music is timeless. The love and the love and the amount of passion that you play with on stage has touched so many people over the years. I'm a long admirer of your music. It was an honor to finally have you on the show. I've been waiting a long time to say rubber biscuit, my brother. I've been waiting a lot.
Yeah. Well, when you hear ba ba ba, that's me. I got that bass part happening, man.
And to all the listeners and people who are tuning in, late shame on you, but the teddy bear does forgive you. We're being joined by the legendary Mr. Lou Marini is joining us today. And remember to get all the latest updates. Make sure you stop by his official website. That's at www.blueloumarini.com. Whatever you need, this is your home away from home. We love you. We respect you. Much continued success. Stay healthy, my brother. Health over wealth any day of the week.
That's for sure, man. Thank you. Thank you. Been a pleasure.
My pleasure, my man. My pleasure. The legendary Lou Marini joining us today here on Night Traxx Radio. I want to thank everyone for tuning in on iHeartRadio, Spotify. We are streaming live on Facebook Live at Night Traxx with 2 X's, double X's. And for those who missed the live interview, no need to fear. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's at Night Traxx with 2 X's, Night Traxx Radio Podcast. To see the interview in its entirety, make sure you follow us on TikTok, Night Traxx Radio, as well as the artist formerly known as Twitter. We're on X, same handle, as well as Instagram. And I want to thank everyone on Bigo for tuning in and watching everything and grooving with us here on a smooth Thursday afternoon. Nothing but love, but we're not done yet. We're not done yet. We got some more information for you. We got some more artists. We'll be back on live actually next Monday. But in order to find out who's going to be on live, make sure you subscribe, follow us on our various social media websites. You can get all the pertinent information. But as in always, it's been a beautiful experience. Without you, there's no teddy bear. Mr. Radiant Extraordinaire. I want everyone to have a very beautiful evening. And as in always, keep it soulful here on Night Traxx Radio.